It is March 12th, 2021, and this is the latest news on, is there still a PCR requirement to enter Colombia? Follow along.
You're watching DC-born Rob, Erasing Borders. And now, the news.
Okay, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever it is you're located, and thanks for watching. It is March 12th, 2021, and this is the latest news in Colombia regarding, is there still a PCR requirement to enter Colombia? Well, as of today, yeah, I think if you're showing up, you're going to need one. But I get up early for you guys, and I got up real early this morning, couldn't sleep. So the first thing I'll look at is news for Colombian, and I found one story, and I said, well, I got to find another one. Well, now I have to find a third one to back this one up. Is this real? And then I went to the State Department and just make sure what I was reading was correct. So you're going to want to watch this video, and you're going to want to watch this video all the way to the end if you have plans to enter Medellin, Colombia from an international location. So first story, let's jump straight into it. Court revoked requirement of PCR tests for travelers. Each one of these stories is either today, yesterday, or the day before. Okay, court revoked requirement of PCR tests for travelers entering the country. The Ministry of Health assured that this decision restores sanitary sovereignty. Okay, so sounding good so far, right? The Minister of Health, Fernando Ruiz, reported that Administrative Court of Cundinamarca reversed a ruling that forced the executive to require the PCR test for the people who enter the country through international flights. Historic failure that recovers to the Ministry of Health, Sanitary Sovereignty and Pandemic and Authority over Collective Risk said that the Minister of Health during the Prevention and Action Program was broadcast on Thursday night. The meaning of the ruling indicates that the plaintiff who won the guardianship by demanding the return of the PCR to protect his right to his health had other judicial means to protect it. So and I'm going to continue to read, but just a brief history, and I'm going to probably recall it incorrectly. When Colombia opened back up last September, they said you're going to open up. There's no need for a PCR requirement. Well, there will be a need for a PCR requirement. Maybe a month later, they said, okay, no more need for a PCR requirement. Then there's an attorney who filed a petition. It's called a tutelage. He filed a petition there and saying that you need to bring the PCR requirement back, which a judge deemed him correct and ordered the Minister of Health, Fernando Ruiz, to re-implement the PCR requirements. And then the Minister of Health says he's not going to do it. And it went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth until finally he said, okay, I got to do what the judge said. So we've had a PCR requirement for the past couple of months? Well, 3 months probably, since December. So this is where we are right now. Okay, it says failure. The decision on March 9th declared the inadmissibility of the constitutional act that ordered the Ministry of Health to issue an administrative act that would regulate the request of a negative PCR test for COVID-19 to all travelers who enter the country on international flights. The ruling indicates that the plaintiff did not prove that one of some of his fundamental rights had been violated or threatened, and that also did not prove the legitimacy of the act in assembling the rights of others. That is, to request constitutional protection in favor of the population Colombian. The requirement of substantiality of the protection action was not fulfilled since the plaintiff had other ordinary mechanisms provided by his legislator to protect his rights. Even more so when he did not prove the occurrence of the irremediable damage, the situation by virtue of which the action of the tutelage became inadmissible, reads the document that was known yesterday. The social protection portfolio indicated that the statement that the challenge to the guardianship ruling issued on November 25th, 2020, added by an order on December 2nd, 2020, and modulated by the order of December 18th that the same annuity issued that the 11th Administrative Court of Orality of the Bogota Circuit, in assigned respect for the governance of the Ministry of Health and Social Protection, has the governing body health of the country. Okay, so this is the first story. So first thing I do is what? Is this real? I have to find another source. So I scoured, another 30 minutes, I found this one. This is from Infobay. By the way, the first one was from El Colombiano, El Jarado. This one is from Infobay. And it states, Colombia, this is dated yesterday, Colombia, Court of Cundinamarca, grave guardianship that ordered the PCR test to be performed on travelers arriving in Colombia. The requirement to present the PCR test for travelers from abroad will no longer apply as ordered by a judge in December 2020. And this again is dated yesterday. Okay, faced with the decision that the head of the portfolio, Fernando Ruiz, said historical ruling that recovers the Minsalud health sovereignty in pandemic and authority over collective risk, administrative court in Cundinamarca revoked ruling that forced PCR on international flights. Very resolution 2532 of 2020, the regulations for the arrival of travelers from other countries during the pandemic were modified. Well, this March 11th, the Administrative Court of Cundinamarca, in response to a challenge presented by the Ministry of Health, decided to revoke that first decision. It's looking like they're getting ready to do away with it. Now, I'm saying if you're showing up today or the next couple of days, get your test. Don't go by this, not yet until you see it on the State Department. I'm going to show you it's not on the State Department's website, but until you see it there, I would say, just be prepared. Okay. Okay. It just did a quick, okay. It switched to Spanish and switched back for me. Okay. Revoking the guardianship ruling issued on November 25th, 2020, added by an order of December 2nd, 2020, and the modality of the order of December 8th are the same. And this is the exact same from the same story, from the last story. So in the antecedents, it is said that everything began with a tutelage filed by Alberto Gonzalez in order to request the protection of the fundamental rights of his health, public health, life, and principle of general interest, which is considered to violate the Ministry of Health due to the elimination of the PCR requirement with a negative test result for international travelers entering the country. The Cundinamarca court explained in its decision that in order to resolve the legal problem, it emphasized that the Protection Act lacks formality when it comes to invoking before the constitutional judge protection one of its own fundamental rights, and allegedly violated, however, the circumstances vary certain cases, such as when acting on behalf of others, which is what happens in the present case. Okay, and it shows the official order that was assigned. This states in January 2021, with the requirement of the PCR test, Migración Colombia reported that only 36.5% of the travelers were presenting the test. Now, keep in mind, most of the people who go back to Colombia are Colombianas, are natives. So that's why it's a low percentage. And they say, I'll just stay at home. I'm not going to take the test and deal with it. I just stay at home for 2 weeks. So as of January 7th, 70,000 travelers between Colombians and foreigners have entered the national territory with a PCR compliance of 36.5%. The rest of the travelers have entered an isolation phase and have undergone their test in national territory as instructed by the Ministry of Health, Minsalud. Juan Francisco Espinosa, Director General of Migración Colombia. For the national government, this requirement generated an impact on the health strategy to contain the epidemic developed throughout 2020 in the country, and which has been supported by COMPES and a series of decrees and resolutions completely structured by the health portfolio. Initially, we had a containment phase where it made sense to limit the entry of travelers, but for some time now, we have been in a migration phase in which the country's level to contagion are similar to those of countries with Colombia exchanges, tourism, trades, and other. Minister Ruiz explained in that time. So, okay, before I jump into this last story, join our channel group. Join our channel group. Send me your name and WhatsApp number to dcbornrobgroup@gmail.com. dcbornrobgroup@gmail.com, and I'll send you an invite to get in. You need to get into this group. Lots of information, support when you're in another country and you need to communicate with us, just like Manfred did last week. Join our channel group, okay? Again, if you're getting any benefit out of my videos, go down and hit the subscribe button, click the bell to be alerted of any new videos, and like. Like helps the YouTube algorithm. The more you hit like, the more YouTube shares it with other people. So back to the story. The next story is removing PCR test is good news for travelers, says Francisco Espinosa. The director of Migración Colombia stated that we are waiting for the expedition by the Minister of Health to make the ruling effective. So the ruling is not effective right now. There is a ruling, and I guess he needs to write the order, sign it, boom, it's law or whatever they call it. They need to adhere to it. No more need for a PCR test. So all those planes and them forcing you to do it, people who live there weren't taking the test. So if 30% are presenting them, that's you from the US and Canada or wherever else. The other 70% on the people on the plane wasn't taking the test anyway. So that's why they said, you might as well come on down and take the test here too. So they were trying to get around the need for it, obviously, but here we go. Okay, this is as of 6 o'clock this morning. It says, in dialogue at 6 a.m., Hoy por Hoy of Caracol Radio, the director of Migración Colombia, Francisco Espinosa, told the details of the ruling of a court that overthrew the guardianship that ordered PCR tests for travelers. Espinosa said that so far this year, there are 400,000 travelers and only 30% of them presented the PCR test and were admitted in isolation. He clarified that this measure is very helpful, very fruitful for people who want to enter and leave the country. Removing PCR test is a good news for travelers. It is good news for travelers if you're going there. He also said that this decision could change since within the parameters stipulated by the norms of travelers, Migración Colombia is exposed to what the Ministry of Health governs. So I guess the Ministry of Health has to bite. And of course they are, because they're the ones that fought to remove it anyway. So they're going to approve it. Ruiz, the head of Minsalud. We are waiting for the resolution to be issued by the Ministry of Health. However, I learned that anything in this country can happen. And that is true. So we abide by the rules and what health personnel through the ministry can preside over commented. Okay, finally, he explained the norm that prevails in Colombia, which is to present the negative PCR test with less than 96 hours of expiration, and if not, an isolation of 14 days. So you still need to do it as of right now. Okay, there is a decision, but I guess the judge needs to write the order. And when the judge writes the order, if maybe he wrote the order, but the Minister of Health is the one that governs over this, which is Ruiz. And he needs to say, okay, according to all these blah, blah, blah. And he's the one that fought to get rid of PCR tests. So it's going to happen. It's just going to happen within the next couple of days. I would guess a couple of days. But again, if you're going into the next week, get your test. 96 hours. This one I just wanted to show you right quick, a U.S. embassy in Colombia. And this is where they send you to. It's, let's see. This one's dated 3/10, and it's just the basic stuff. Click here for this, click there for that. But what I really wanted to scroll through was our PCR, okay, COVID-19 test, our PCR and or antigen test available for U.S. citizens in Colombia. Yes. Are the test results reliable, available in 72 hours? Yes. Okay, has the governor, okay, for vaccines, where my entry, okay, here we go. Entry and exit requirements. Are U.S. citizens permitted to enter? Yes. Limited international flights have resumed to 8 of Colombia's busiest airports, Bogota, Cartagena, blah, blah, blah. Is a negative COVID-19 test, PCR or serology required for entry? Yes. So even according to ours, and we're not going to change our site. Normally our sites, the State Gov and U.S. Embassy are like 2 days behind. So even when they enact it, it's not going to show up right here. But this is like the be all and end all, because if it says it here, it's pretty much a done deal. And it's not saying that right now. Okay. So again, join our channel group. Okay. Lots of information there. Send me your email and your WhatsApp number to dcbornrobgroup@gmail.com. Again, if you're getting any benefit out of my videos, do me a favor, go down and hit the subscribe button. Click the bell to be alerted of any new videos, and like. The more you hit like, the more YouTube shares the video. Simple as that. Thank you guys for watching. That's the latest for today. Be safe.
We have a YouTube channel, like it.
Please comment and share if you like the video. Please subscribe and kick the bell.